let's turn our attention to those teams then that will be competing for the gold balls. So, of the teams that are going to the playoffs, this is a chance to do some fine tuning, maybe to improve their seating in some cases. Um, which Central Texas teams do you guys feel like are playing the best as we go into the postseason, or as we approach the postseason?
I think there's a bunch of them. I think there's, suddenly it looks like a lot of teams out there that could make deep runs for us. I don't know. We've had heavy favorites to make the state championship game around here before, and maybe we don't have as many of those, although we got at least one that I can think of. But I'll talk about La Vega and Robinson because they played, in week 9, and La Vega won, and was one of those games that came down to one bad bounce, right? And that's not taking anything away from La Vega. I'm just saying that's the kind of game it was. They got a bounce that went their way, and they won the game. And La Vega looks really good, and they had to be really good to beat the Robinson team that I saw last Friday night against Gatesville. As I mentioned on After Dark, their offense looks really good, and their defense played great against Gatesville. Got 4 interceptions, which, huge plays, creating turnovers. So, those two, that district might do really well in the playoffs.
One team I wanted to mention that I think maybe is, especially over like the last 2 to 3, maybe as much as 4. I would say definitely at least the last 2 to 3 weeks. But the Teague Lions are
Mm-hmm.
absolutely playing some of the best football right now. I mean, you talk about what they did to Palestine Westwood, and
Mm-hmm.
then turned around and what I think they had a 50 to nothing shutout win the week after that, and they have some horses healthy now. And as you mentioned, Chad, I mean, they've got some other guys um, who they might not have for the rest of the year, like who had gotten hurt early in the year. But
Mm-hmm.
with some of those guys that they put back into the lineup, especially on offense,
Well,
man, yeah, they're rolling right now.
yeah. I don't. Bryce, do you remember Zach and Drew Satterwhite that were football players at TIG a few years
Yeah.
ago?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're kind of like cousins of mine, and so I saw their mom at church on Sunday. She was in town visiting uh, her actual cousins, and so I was kind of trying to pick her brain about that Palestine Westwood game. I'm suddenly very interested in the Palestine Westwood Panthers.
Because they have a quarterback who may commit to Tech. Is that
He
right?
did commit to
Well,
Texas Tech.
he did commit to Tech, yeah,
Yeah.
after the Fairfield game.
And so I'm going, how did they lose to Teague and Fairfield, right? And anyway, she just said, real simply, they got some guys back that they needed, I
Yeah.
guess. So that's kind of the story there. Since I'm talking, I'll just keep on talking. Uh, Another team, the Whitney Wildcats, have
I was
really
gonna bring
gained
them up.
momentum
Yeah.
in district, and if they can beat West and get a #1 seed, I've liked them all year, and the fact that they've kind of learned how to pull things together and get on a winning streak bodes well for them.
Two things real quick I'll say about Whitney just to add on to
Mm-hmm.
that is um, you mentioned they're obviously playing their best right now, and especially have been since district play started, but particularly on the defensive end, I think is where they've seen the most growth. They're getting more stops. Coach Haynes will tell you that their linebackers may not look the biggest or look like the strongest
Mm-hmm.
athletes out there, but they're making plays. And then Kobe Haynes deserves a major shout out for what he's been able to do since what was it, 4 or 5 weeks ago, shifting over to quarterback when Fisher Watson got hurt, and Kobe Haynes is still playing quarterback and appears to continue to be doing so. I found out Fisher is back and playing. He's playing some safeties, even playing some receiver. They're using him in some different spots, but Coach Haynes has a pretty versatile team, and that's going
Mm-hmm.
to be a tough team for West to stop this week.
Mm-hmm.
Guess I'll pluck the low hanging fruit here and just say Fairfield, Bremond. I mean, I don't know how we can't at least
Yeah.
mention them. They've been strong all year, both of those teams. We've talked so much about like the likes of Cole Collins, but a guy that really has run the ball well, and he's a great defensive player. for Fairfield is Jason Brackens. And
Correct.
it's the 99th straight year that Fairfield has had a Brackens in some sport.
Yep.
And yes, he is from the famous Brackens family.
What I want to know, I want to do a deep stat dive. I want to know Fairfield High School's record in all sports, their winning percentage when they have a Brackens.
When they have a Brackens,
it's probably
good.
higher than without.
It's really good.
Yeah, I would venture that.
And obviously Bremond, we've talked a lot about them too. State semifinals last year, and I think Chad was probably referencing them when he said the favorite to maybe get there this year. But one team that we've talked a little bit about, but maybe a little less, under the radar or something, more under the radar, and that would be the Hamilton Bulldogs.
Definitely.
Hamilton, just two losses on the year. One of those to Crawford. I'm sure they'd probably like to run that back. But playing for a district championship this week against De Leon. And of course, we know what they did last year with that good deep run. They got some dudes back from that team. They lost some too, but Hamilton's a team I think that, they could make another run.
I asked Coach Marwitz last week when I was doing the preview capsule. I asked him kind of a weird question, and sometimes coaches don't like making comparisons or whatever. I was like, okay, do you think last year's team would have beat Crawford? Because they beat Crawford. They beat Crawford in 2024. This year, Crawford beats them. I guess my question was, if Crawford this year played them last year, who would have won?
Mm-hmm.
Weird question, I know. And this wasn't anything I was looking for the preview. I was just kind of talking to him, and he was receptive. And he said, Crawford had some injuries and they were still really good. And that was still a really tough game. And I think they had some injuries in that game against Hamilton that kind of kept them. And we're going to talk more about Crawford here in a minute. But Hamilton might not be far off where they were last year. It's kind of hard to tell. They're out there in kind of
no man's land. We don't see them quite as much.
They're in the outback of Texas. That little triangle between Waco, Abilene, and Fort Worth.
Between the super-centex country and the big country is just what we would call no man's land, I guess. But certainly they're getting it done. So
one more low-hanging fruit team that I think is worth a mention. We've talked a ton and written a ton about them, but University, man, is absolutely playing some. I mean, you talk about where they were sitting after that Lampasas game. What were they, 2-3? I mean, it would have been really easy to kind of sulk a little bit going into district play, but they've absolutely taken care of business and have a huge opportunity this week. So
keep milking London Smith, man. I mean, just ride that dude. He's got 16 touchdown catches on the year now,
and first season over 1,000 yards for him as a high schooler,
nice.
Which was a huge goal for him going into the year. So
good deal.